Go on to Streaming Wars.
Okay, very cool. All right, so if you'll, do you want me to go first, or you want to go first, Eric?
You can go first, Dave.
Okay, all right. If you will share my screen, got our fancy Streaming Wars graphic here, and then I will bring up my my news article that I may lose my stuff over. Okay, so this was obviously on Mashable, as you can see here. Everyone's if you're familiar with the show, if you've been listening to either the audio version of the show, if you've been watching the current live show, you've heard me talk about all the issues I was having with YouTube, and that's why my YouTube channel no longer exists. I was having all kinds of frustrating issues with it. They would pull videos down in the middle of the night, and I'd get a notification at 2 o'clock. All my content was constantly being demonetized. It was just proving a giant pain. And a lot of my content wasn't even monetized, but they would send me those warnings. It's like, there's a copyright strike, so you can't monetize this video if you wanted to. And then I actually got a copyright strike actually on the one video I was considering monetizing. And the thing that drove me nuts about that copyright strike was that I got a copyright strike for music that I actually purchased the rights to use. So everything going on YouTube between the COPPA law, the enforcement thing going on with people being fined, it's just absolutely nuts. So when I saw this one, I wanted to bring this up. This news story is on Mashable. The headline says, YouTube reversed my bogus copyright strike after I threatened to write this. So we're going to dig into this article just a little bit. So it says, can you receive a copyright strike on YouTube for content that doesn't even exist? Let me answer that question from my own personal experience. The answer to the question is, yes, you can. And the article says, you can, and I know because it happened to me. It also happened to me. You see, I host a political podcast, Doomed, with Matt Bender, which also streams live on YouTube. The left-leaning show covers everything from the far right to tech policy, from internet conspiracy theories to the Democratic primary race. Which brings me to Tuesday, January 14th, the night of the CNN Democratic primary debate in Iowa. Earlier in the evening, I'd scheduled a YouTube live stream, as I always do, the night of the debate, in order to discuss the event with progressive activist Jordan Yule. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. After CNN's broadcast wrapped up, I even labeled it as a post-democratic debate show featuring Yule's name directly in the scheduled stream title. These post-debate shows consist entirely of webcam feeds of my guests and myself, split screen style, breaking down the night's events. Shortly after setting up the stream, which wasn't scheduled to start for hours, I received an email from YouTube. Copyright takedown notice. Your video has been taken down from YouTube. Okay, you can go to Mashable and continue reading this story if you find it interesting, or you can even just do a YouTube. This is, again, by Matt Bender, and this is on Mashable. I wanted to bring this up for the Streaming Wars because we've talked about how YouTube has a unique competitive advantage in the Streaming Wars because they don't pay to produce a lot of their content, because they have a lot of people like I used to be that produce content and put it on YouTube in the hopes that people will watch it, and they're not paying for that content. And so that gives them a unique advantage. But Eric's brought up, and I brought up, how their competitive advantage is basically being eroded by the things that they're actually doing internally at YouTube, with a lot of their enforcement of their copyright strikes. It's just getting, for me, it got so excessive, I just pulled the whole channel down. I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm out. And I'm slowly migrating that content to Vimeo, so there'll be an announcement actually here on the show eventually, and I'll talk about where you can go to watch the shows. We actually have 4 shows still in production with Alec Kozak actually as the host. I need to finish those up, but without somewhere to put them, I kind of set them on the back burner. So tell me, gentlemen, how do you feel about this story on Mashable about how YouTube basically issued a copyright strike for something that hadn't even actually started yet?
Well, I had a chance to read this article before the show, and I was pretty shocked because you know, we've talked about the level of corporatism in YouTube now, and how they seem to be shifting that in that direction. And this is a classic example of that. Apparently, what happened was, that CNN was basically trying to say that this guy's content belonged to them based on the fact that he was commenting on a debate that was airing on CNN. That's ridiculous. That entire logic is ridiculous. So yeah, it's I was pretty even because I've tried to keep up on all this stuff, with especially with the COPPA. I'm big on COPPA. I'm one of the few people that talks about Section 230. Nobody talks about Section 230. But the thing is I was I was shocked by this, that they were able to do that and use that kind of reasoning, and the fact that YouTube permitted it. It's just ridiculous. So
yeah, I mean, Dave, you and I have talked about this sort of stuff at great length, especially about the YouTube. We've put in a lot of time and effort into putting together the videos and doing the commentary, and joking around, and making it something that's enjoyable and it's entertaining. And this is content. I mean, we're talking about movies that are 20, 30 years old, and we're having to be very careful with the content that we're posting on there.
Yeah.
Even though it is commentary, we're saying, hey, we like this, we don't like this. We're not going out there, we're not slinging any mud, and we're also not promoting it to try and generate our ad revenues. We're just saying what's on our mind, and we're putting it on a platform that has a wider reach than standing downtown with a picket sign that says The Thing is an underrated John Carpenter film. Like, we're not
Right.
we're not doing that. So it's like,
right.
where does that line go? And in the case of the scheduled post getting taken down, I mean, clearly they're looking at that content before it becomes available to the public. So I mean, yeah, it's crossing the line, it's jumping the gun, and it's a little Orwellian to some degree. But yeah, I mean, where's the line for entertainment commentary? Where's that drawn?
It's a strange thing. It's something I never understood. I would go out of my way to try and edit the videos for a long time, so they would stay basically kind of within their guidelines. But anyhow, it's just one of those things. It's part of the reason why I decided to pull the YouTube show altogether. And eventually it will be a Vimeo show.
And Patrick just said that he finished reading the article. He read the article after you posted it there, and he says it seems like the Warner Brothers and CNN were so worried about what might be put out there that they decided to be uber proactive.
Oh, great! So we have pre-crime.
Yeah, that's
Right.
exactly,
That's what we've got going
what
on.
it is. Yep, that's
Exactly.
pre-crime.
Pre-crime.
Only we're talking about a competitor too. Here's the other funny thing. Basically, CNN is so insecure that they have to go after this guy's podcast because they feel like his content's going to be better than theirs and take some of their views away. That's really what it comes down to, right? They're competitors. They're competing in the same space, and apparently somebody at Warner Brothers' job is to look at this kind of stuff and say, you know what, this guy actually might be kind of good. He might even have better insight than us because we're basically shills. So maybe we need to take this guy down. You know what I mean? So it is what it is.
Yeah. It's a strange thing. I wanted to bring it up because I had talked about it on the show about how bad it was.
Patrick knows what we're talking about here. He knows what's going on.
But no, I just wanted to bring it up because I talked about it before in ad nauseum, actually going back to the actual audio only show with Lynn Workman, who was one of the former hosts. And, Alec has heard lots about it. Eric's heard lots about it. It's a problem. It's a huge, giant problem for those of us. Well, I'm not anymore, but for those people creating content, on YouTube, it's a real concern. And I think back to, you remember, Alec, I was telling you about all the problems I was having with the Hulk show.
Right.
It's like before I would even go live, I would get a copyright strike. And I was like, what is it? Is it the music? Is it the intro? Is it this? Is it that? I went in and created my own original interpretation of the 1970s TV show episode re-edited it, uploaded it. I did it 5 times that night. Took forever. Got that one up, and when I went to bed, everything was fine, and it was scheduled to go live. Then I see an email like the next morning when I get up and I'm getting ready, to go to my day job, and it's been pulled down because it has a copyright strike on it. I'm like, for what? I didn't use the music. I didn't use any video. A lot of the images were so heavily edited and repurposed. I was just like, seriously? But yeah, Universal just hated the fact that we wanted to tell everyone they need to go watch the Hulk television series because the TV pilot is still great. That's the thing that kills me the most. We were literally telling people, if you haven't seen this, you are missing out, and you owe it to yourself to go watch the original Hulk television pilot because it still stands up. It's great television. It's great content, a great interpretation of the Hulk. We couldn't have recommended that show and that particular 2-hour pilot more than we did on that show. And Universal's going, you guys don't need to tell people this. You don't need to tell people that or people that are interested in what you're doing that the Hulk is pretty great. You should go check it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a shame because I mean, there's so many people out there that have so many different viewpoints when it comes to pop culture, and they're always viewing it through a different lens. And just from my experience at the show, and I'm sure Dave, you've had the same too. There's nothing quite like sitting behind the table and then like having someone come up to the table and just striking up a conversation like, hey, did you see this latest episode, or did you watch this comment, or read this comic, or watch this movie, or whatever. And then they get really passionate talking to you about it, and and then we say, oh, I really like this and I like that, and if you really like this movie, then you should check out these things that preceded it, because you might have a different appreciation for the material that you're watching. And I mean, I understand that it's it's a recording, it's not happening in real time, but I think there's something to be said about the interaction of all people from all experiences talking about their passions, and to just flat out deny it. I don't know. I think they're shooting themselves in the foot, and it's just going to get worse until the mucky, gross water is cleaned up and things become more clear.
Yeah. And we still have, like I said, we've got 4 episodes still in production. They're still going to come out. They feature all original new art. They're hopefully going to be going up on Vimeo once I get the rest of the content up. I have to cut in the warning graphic and some other things just to make sure that we don't get ourselves in any, whatever trouble. But no, it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. I don't understand why they're so aggressive. I mean, I again, they've lost lawsuits. So I understand why they have such an aggressive take on the copyright stuff and everything. But flagging stuff, to maybe check out later versus just denying it to even go live to begin with. Those are 2 different things. You want to flag something and say, hey, this may be a problem, and come back and review it after the show has gone up or once the show is available to see. And you go, okay, yeah, this is very much a violation of our copyright or a trademark or whatever. You can't have this. That's fine. But doing it before the thing even goes live, that's something different. And I'm not a left-leaning guy, or I don't really consider myself much of a right-leaning guy. I consider myself a centrist. But this whole YouTube thing that they brought up, it's like, well, that happened to me, and it's just they're going after everyone. It doesn't matter, and they're being way too aggressive about it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally
definitely agree. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring that up to people's attention so they could see I'm not crazy.